Well, happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. Schmeelk, Cross, you, 201-939-4513. Only have one school today, so we're going to have a lot of time to take your calls, so get on the line, and we'll probably get to your calls around 12:45, 12:50. Apologies for starting a couple minutes late. We will go a couple minutes late to make up that time for you right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Howard, how are you, my friend?
I'm very good. And yourself?
We're doing great, and let's welcome our guest, who Howard has a connection to because of the school that he covers, where his son, Howard Jr., attends.
Howard III. I'm junior.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Nobody knew. Everybody says that. It's kind of funny, though.
Howard Cross the third. Okay, I like it. Does he have the third on his jersey or no? He does.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. And we're joined by Eric Hansen, who's a friend of the program. He has done this for us for many years. He does a great job covering Notre Dame. He's the co-publisher of InsideNotreDameSports.com, and he joins us right now on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Eric, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, and we have Howard Cross the third on our depth chart.
Yes, you do.
All right, so you know what? Before we get to the NFL draft prospects, give me a lowdown. How is Howard the third doing in spring practice for Notre Dame this year?
Well, he plays nose guard, and if you look at his measurables, you would say, how is that possible? And he has incredible hands and incredible quickness. So I think when he was living at home with Howard Jr., he must have gotten to whatever was on the dinner table the fastest because he has great hands. But he's going to be a starter and a standout for that defensive line this year.
Well, it's very nice of you to say. He's working really hard, believe me. He talks to me almost every day about it.
Well, if he's telling you he's having a good spring, he's telling the truth.
He complains about everything. He never says he's having a good day.
That's good, though.
He always wants to be perfect. I'm like, buddy, no one's perfect.
There you go.
All right, so Eric, let's get to it here, and let's start with your tight end prospect, Michael Mayer. And, Bruce Feldman, who does a great job covering college football, he did his little mock draft where he listed, comments from opposing coaches about players when he did the mock. And there were a couple players where I talked to him, and he said, look, John, I couldn't find somebody to say a bad thing about the guy, and Michael Mayer was one of them. And I feel like for a guy like him, you can watch his tape, you can look at his measurables and his testing, but you don't really ever get a true appreciation for what he does unless you literally watch him ply his trade every day. You do. Why is Michael Mayer the best tight end in this class, if you think that he is?
I do think he is, although I think there's some other very good ones out there. I think Michael Mayer's consistency, his tenacity, he's Notre Dame. He was Notre Dame's best player last year. He was also probably the guy that worked the hardest and also studied the game the most. And he just does everything well. He acts like he's a walk-on trying to get a scholarship, and he's just supremely talented. You think about the tight ends that have come from Notre Dame. Every starting tight end since the early 2000s has been drafted, every single one. And you think about a lot of the ones in recent years, Tyler Eifert and Cole Kmet, Kyle Rudolph, a lot of first and second round picks. And he obliterated all their records in 3 years. And some of those guys played 4 and some played 5. Not all of them, but some of those guys played multiple years. Broke all the records from Ken McAfee, who was a great tight end in the late 70s, who finished third in the Heisman Trophy voting.
Wow.
It's just production, and then he makes everybody around him better. He's one of those guys that, not because he's a yeller, but because of the standard he sets, makes everybody around him want to be better.
That's pretty cool. But I don't have anything to cover on that. Then he totally wipes out.
I have one follow up on
okay,
him, and I want to see if Eric, if you think the comparison I've been making for Mayer this entire draft process has been Jason Witten. And look, Jason Witten's going to be a Hall of Famer, and I don't say that lightly. I understand, and I don't like to make those, hyperbole comparisons because I think, too many times you get every draft prospect gets compared to a Hall of Famer, and it drives me nuts because not all these guys are Hall of Famers, right? But the reason I say it is that he's a two-way player. He can block, he can catch.
Yeah.
And you watch him on tape, and you're like, how the hell does this guy get open all the time? Yet he's open all the time, and when you throw the ball to him, even if there's a guy in his back, you know who's catching it? Michael Mayer's catching it. Do you think that's a fair comparison?
I think it is. I mean, it's hard, again, when you set the standard that high, but you think about he's a guy that, you know, came in with very high expectations. He was a 5-star prospect, and he didn't just live up to them. He exceeded them. And
wow.
Just his consistency, the kind of person that he is behind the player, I just find it a hard scenario for him not to be a long-time standout in the league. And again, this is a school that prides itself on calling itself tight end U, and all the tight ends that it's sent to the NFL and all the All-Americans that it's had. And for him to be at the top of that list, I mean, given the context, that's something.
And I would say, just so fans understand, you know, Eric, he's a really good blocker, right? Like, this isn't a guy that's just going out there and catch. Like, he will block the heck out of the run game, right?
He absolutely will, and he's a guy you can flex out, and he can be the traditional tight end. I mean, he came in and he was pretty close to being able to do all those things, but that's what he worked on during his 3 years at Notre Dame, was becoming that complete tight end. That's what he wanted to do. And you think about, like, a guy like Tommy Tremble, who's in the league. Tommy was a year ahead of Michael, and came out early because he was behind Michael on the depth chart. That's how good Michael Mayer was as a young player.
That's pretty good.
Go ahead, Howard.
I laugh because, you know, we had, like, you know, Derek Brown, Mark Bavaro, and all the tight ends in the past that came to here from Notre Dame. So that's why I'm like, I'm not going to say a word. I'm just going to let them go ahead and talk about them, because Notre Dame tight ends are pretty good guys. I was going to ask you, though, because we did have another, you know, Notre Dame guy that I know pretty well, Justin Tuck here, and you got a guy on your team that broke his sack record, Isaiah Foskey. Talk about Isaiah.
Yeah, Justin Tuck's sack record lasted a long time, and Isaiah got to it this year, and he did it in 3 years. So really, Justin did it in a shorter time too. I mean, his freshman year at Notre Dame, they didn't know what to do with him, and then Tyrone Willingham came in and he said, "He's my edge player," and he took off from there. Isaiah is a guy that was recruited on both sides of the ball as a defensive end and as a tight end, and he could have been really good at either one. His freshman year didn't play much except for special teams. Blocked a punt, I remember, out at Stanford. And then you saw, you know, a high motor, high athletic guy that can also drop into coverage. I think that's going to be kind of what his fit is, or what his best fit is somebody schematically that will have him rush the passer, but also he'll be able to drop into the flat and cover people too. And so Isaiah Foskey, I think, will, you know, be a really good selection for someone.
You know, he seems like a good all-around player. You know, you watch him, he's not like super bendy where he's going to, you know, get that crazy ankle flexion and bend the corner, but he's stout, he can stop the run, he's a solid, productive pass rusher. He maybe doesn't wow you with anything, but it seems to me if you're going to pick him on like day 2, you're going to get a solid all-around player that's probably not going to hurt you anywhere, Eric. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. You know, he definitely worked hard on becoming as good in the run game as he is as a pass rusher. I think that's still his best football in the run game is still ahead of him, but I think he made himself into an adequate, more than adequate run stopper. The thing that I think is interesting is how good he's on special teams. He blocked 2 punts this year. He blocked one as a freshman. So he's a guy that buys into special teams and can really help you there.
Interesting. Okay. So, and you think a day 2 draft pick, that's what we're looking at?
I think so. I mean, there was talk about, you know, him possibly being able to play himself into the back of the first round. I don't think that that's probably going to happen. I think day 2 is realistic for Isaiah.
All right, I'm going to go to Jarrett Patterson, your starting center. You talk about Notre Dame being known as tight end U. Well, they've developed some really good offensive linemen over the years as well. And I think next year, you guys, I think right now have the top offensive tackle maybe in the 2023 class, if I'm not mistaken, or 2024 class, I should say. Jarrett Patterson, your center. Also guard. So I guess why don't we start there? What's his best position? Is it center? Is it guard? And where do you see him fitting best at the NFL level?
I think his best position is center. He was a 3-year starter at center, and then Harry Hiestand, who came back and then retired after this year. So he was back at Notre Dame for 1 year, and he's the guy responsible for sending a lot of those guys into the NFL. He asked Jarrett to move to guard to give another young man a chance to be center. Harry likes to take his best 5 guys and then just fit them to positions. He doesn't care if they were all high school tackles, if they've never played center. And Jarrett hadn't. So Jarrett ended up being a starting center. I don't think he had the year this year that he has had in the past. Part of it, the new position. Part of it, the guy sprained his foot in August.
Yep.
And then played with that injury the whole season. And so I don't think people really saw the real Jarrett Patterson. Now, teams may be concerned because he had a season-ending injury in another season and then had to play through an injury this year. But, he could have sat out this year and maybe helped himself or sat out part of the year, but he didn't want to let his team down. So very unselfish guy, multiple-year captain. I think of all the guys I've covered, one of the most impressive individuals in terms of being unselfish and team-oriented. And again, center is definitely his better position. But now he's got position flexibility. He can help you at 3 positions.
Like it. Okay, let's go. I'm going to go back to Jersey here. One of the competitors, or I guess 2 of the competitors with St. Joe's, with St. Peter's, and the Amendola brothers. Tell me about Jason. Are both guys going in the draft, or one guy definitely trying to get drafted? What are we looking at with them?
When I look at the 7-round mocks, Howard, I have not seen them in it, and it surprises me with Jason. I'm surprised. I don't know that Jason had the year that he wanted, his final year there. He's the inside player that played next to Howard. And I just thought, at the beginning of the year, that's one of Notre Dame's best 5 players. I don't know that he finished the year close to that. He had to play through some injuries. If he does not get drafted, he will be on a roster somewhere, and somebody will be kicking themselves that they didn't get him. Justin had the better year of the 2 of them this year. It's always been, Jason was the higher-rated recruit.
Yep.
Jason was the guy that started sooner. Justin was an edge player that didn't have the freaky edge kind of numbers if you do a combine or a pro day with him, and yet he was extremely productive. Notre Dame would have loved for him to come back for a 6th year. Jason couldn't have come back. Justin could. They both decided to go. Again, I think Justin's another guy that'll end up in somebody's camp, and they'll say, why wasn't this guy drafted? But I would say long-term, I think Jason still is the one of those 2 that probably will have the longer career and maybe break through sooner.
All right, Eric, last one from me. How about Brandon Joseph, the safety? I know some people are talking about him as maybe a 4th or 5th round guy. Your thoughts on him? Safety's a position now, too, where, guy's not just a safety. Is he more of a box guy? Is he a center field guy? Is he a split high guy? Is he a slot guy? What's his role in the way Notre Dame plays their defense, and where do you think he fits best in the pros?
Right. Notre Dame tries to cross-train their safeties so they can do at least, be a center fielder and be a box kind of guy. He was an All-American at Northwestern as a sophomore, then had a real off year, transferred to Notre Dame to try to boost his draft stock. I'm not sure that he helped it a ton because he wasn't healthy a lot of the year. Probably the last third of the year he was injured, played a little bit against USC, but after the Clemson game in early November, he missed a bunch of games. But he was productive. That's what I'll say about him. I think the problem with him was he followed Kyle Hamilton, who is a hard guy to follow.
Yep.
But I think Brandon Joseph will be a solid safety in the NFL, and I think probably a day 3 pick for him.
You're good, Howard?
That's good. I like that. I mean, I think he's got the size and speed. He played well last year. I got to see him in a couple of games. I was there at the Clemson game. He played well in that game as well, so it'd be interesting to see.
And he returned punts. I mean, he's got some position, he's got some versatility. Again, Notre Dame special teams were really good. They have the team buy-in on that. So anybody you get off of that team is going to be ready and willing to play special teams.
All right, real quick before we say goodbye, Eric, who's your starting quarterback next year?
You know what? It's been an interesting spring. Sam Hartman came in, and I'll tell you, when you watch him in individual drills, you go, okay, this guy's – and I watched him play at Wake Forest. I watched him when he was a freshman getting killed against Notre Dame in a 2018 game, and then I watched him last year, and I said, this is the same guy?
Yeah, Eric, it's funny, because, his receiver, A.T. Perry, is coming out this year, so I watched a lot of A.T. Perry, and I'm watching him like, wow, that kid can throw the football, man. Yeah. He's got a lot of talent.
He can. The thing that happened in the spring was Hartman made Tyler Buckner better. He took him under his wing, and Tyler Buckner helped him with the playbook, and they become best friends, and it's the best-case scenario. They've made each other better. I still think Hartman wins that job in the summertime, and then Buckner will be the starting quarterback the year after, and better off with Hartman having been here.
Nice.
Makes sense. You have any more questions for him, Howard?
No, I don't.
Notre Dame related, draft related, you name it.
Tell me about, just before you go, tell me about how that offense is going to look, though. You possibly have a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator. How's it going to look?
I think you'll see some things from the Tommy Rees offense. I think, use of the tight ends. Howard, the offensive line, those tackles are both ridiculous. I mean, they're juniors. Joe Ald would probably be a first-round pick as a junior. Blake Fisher is right behind him. So they're going to have a really good offensive line. But where I've seen them improve, they're just more athletic and deeper at wide receiver. And that's going to be kind of the exciting thing to see, is if they've got a deep ball game. They have a sophomore named Tobias Merriweather, who you probably saw very little of, but I'm sure Howard told you about him.
Yeah, I saw him a couple times.
Yeah, and he, with a quarterback now that can throw deep, his best traits are going to come out. He will be on the outside for them at 6'4", and not Will Fuller speed, but pretty close to that.
Okay.
He's going to be their field receiver, and I'm really eager. In the three freshman receivers, the wide receiver position is the position that's changed the most, and I think will have maybe a different emphasis this year than it did last year. They're so confident in their young receivers. Today they moved their leading returning receiver from last year, Lorenzo Styles, to cornerback.
Whoa. That's interesting. All right, so I'm going to let you go, but I do have to ask you one question. It's probably a little sacrilege. How's Tommy Rees going to do at Alabama?
That's a good question. Howard, I think Tommy has – I don't know that Notre Dame got Tommy's best years. I think, Brian hired him very young when he was learning. You got his early coordinator years, and I think he's going to be somebody that we're talking about years from now. But I'll tell you, Alabama, as you know, is a different planet from anywhere else, and he better have a thick skin and be pretty consistent, because they're going to be grading on a much higher scale at Alabama. I'm telling you.
Yeah, he's grading. You just got to get by Uncle Nick.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. We really appreciate your
Eric,
time.
good stuff, man. Co-publisher of InsideNDSports.com. Eric, great stuff. We've been having so much fun having you on every year. Keep up the good work. We'll talk to you next season.
Thanks. Great talking to you guys.
Eric Hansen, we thank him for joining us. Great information there, Howard. And I have a homework assignment for you.
Uh-oh. I'm ready.
You can even text him during the show. I don't care. Text little Howard. Tell me what he thinks about Jared Patterson, the center, because I'm sure he went against him in practice a ton.
He thought he was a good player. He worked him out a lot. And he, they didn't do the brother-in-law thing. They went after each other pretty good, especially in the spring. He thinks he should be a draft pick and thinks he should have a chance to quote unquote make it in the league. So that's the guy you played against mostly. Tell me how he's going to do. So those are kind of his words about him.
All right. Sounds good to me. 201-939-4513. All right, folks, we're going to get to your calls right now. But first, don't forget to subscribe. First of all, the Big Blue Kickoff Live on your favorite podcast platform. But also our two other podcasts, the Giants Huddle podcast, where we've been doing great interviews with guests talking about the NFL draft. We've had guys like Charles Davis, Bucky Brooks, who is one of your contemporaries in the league, if I'm not mistaken. We've had former NFL scouts like Brian Broaddus. We have TJ McRate coming up later this week. He was on the Eagles personnel staff when they drafted Devontae Smith and helped build the roster. He's retired now. He works for the 33rd team, so he's joining us later in the week. So a lot of good guests, a lot of good draft talk. So go check it out, Giants Huddle Podcast. And, of course, draft season, our all-draft podcast, Tony, Pauline, and I. It's not Giants-based. It's just all about the draft. Last week we did our offensive players deeper past the top 10. This week it's defense. That's going up tomorrow. So make sure you go check that out. Again, draft season and the Giants Huddle Podcast. Just search for it on your favorite podcast platform or go to the Giants mobile app or Giants.com/podcast. Whatever podcast you listen to, if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star positive review. It helps our ratings. It helps our visibility. If people search for Giants or draft, our stuff will pop up. If you leave those 5-star reviews, and if you do, you're on Twitter, send them in to me. Take shots at people, make them entertaining. I'll read them on the air. We'll have some fun. All right, let's get to it. 201-939-4513. Thank you, everybody, for listening, of course. Let's go to Garrison. He wants to talk about the draft. Garrison, what's up?
Hey, John. Hey, Howard. How y'all doing today?
What's up, Garrison? Where you calling from, pal?
Calling from Mississippi. I'm on the way to Howard's favorite city, Tuscaloosa.
There you go. Roll Tide.
So I had a question. With the draft, I'm hoping Deontay Banks can fall to us, but I highly doubt that will. Do you think Brian Branch can play corner? Because I've seen some mock drafts where it's listing him as a safety, but sometimes it's a corner.
I think he's more of a slot myself. He ran a 4.58 at the combine, right? You don't see many outside corners run 4.58s. So, and he's only 5'11", I think, Howard, right? So I think he has corner skills. I'm just not quite sure he has the speed to play outside. But he did play slot a lot at Alabama.
He played slot a lot at Alabama. He's out there and kind of in almost a safety position. He had to come up, the way they run the ball a lot in college. They're trying to be more quote unquote pass oriented, but in the SEC, you'll get a lot of teams trying to run downhill at you and trying to take that position of that guy on. So that's where he kind of made people get his looks from.
Great tackler, by the way.
That's what I'm saying. That's where he got his looks from. Like, oh my God, like this guy's he's coming down and filling in. The question is going to be in the NFL: can you stand outside one of the top receivers at 4.5? Unless he
4.58.
Unless he had a bad, 40 running experience there, you can't really stand out on the outside because all they're going to do is try to get to the edge and let's make it a foot race. And if the guy has time, you don't want anything to do with that. That's just out. At slot, he can mess it up a little bit. And he's got quick feet. He has got good hips, so he could probably stay with some of the slot receivers. And he doesn't have to be in jam or right on top of him. He can actually make a move and make a cut with him to stay in that position. Outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah, and look, Xavier McKinney's their center fielder, right? Mm-hmm. And Julian Love played really close to the line of scrimmage last year.
Yeah.
I think he would fit in that role really, really well if he somehow got to 25, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what he could do.
Yeah, because I was thinking if we get Brian Branch and then either draft Jahir Brown or Sidney Brown in the second round, or I'm really hoping we can get Andre Carter from Army in second round, if that's possible, and then maybe third round.
Garrison, real quick, Andre Carter is probably going to be a day 3 pick. His testing numbers, he's long and he's talented. He has production, but his testing numbers were very, very poor. I'm going to bring a few up here just so Howard can have a feel for exactly what he did on his pro day and at the combine. But, he was highly rated coming out, but then when he tested, a lot of people were a little worried about that. For example, he's an edge rusher, Howard. Mm-hmm. He bench pressed 11 reps at 220.
How much does he weigh?
He weighs, what are you weighing at the combine? 6'6", 256.
Oh, so he's a slim guy.
He's very slender, and the reason they give, and now look, he ran a 4.91 40-yard dash as an edge player.
Yeah, no offense, that's going to be a little tough for him.
Now, his shuttle and three-cone were good. They were in the 80th and 90th percentile, so they were good. But I think what people have said about Andre Carter, and we even talked about him a ton, I'm happy you brought him up, that the way Army's literally their regiment is, right? There's so much like PTO and stuff like that, where, physical training, where it's hard to put on weight. So, you're not lifting weights all year. He's like running miles and miles every day because of the way Army runs their program. You're training soldiers. So,
and most of the time he's not speed training. He's not trying to get faster, which is probably number one.
He isn't working on fast twitch stuff.
Yeah,
right.
And the weightlifting is not, it's not like they can get to lift a little, but they can't lift on a regular basis like a regular college athlete would be doing.
And that's why his explosion numbers are poor. He made a 30-inch vertical jump.
Again, I'd be afraid of that too.
Yeah,
and I'll be honest with you, I'd be afraid of it too. I don't know if that's him or and the way they play. They play most of the military schools. Most of them run the ball, so he's not really prone to pass rush, so to speak.
So I think he's a developmental. Like you talk about a guy that needs a year in the weight room. He might need 2 years in the weight room before he kind of discovers all his inherent. Yeah, exactly. To me, he is a day 3 guy. I would be shocked if he goes in the 3rd round with those. Honestly,
he's probably going to be, if he gets drafted like 5th or 6th round, if he does, maybe even 7th round. And then if he doesn't, he'll make somebody's team, but he'll be a practice squad player just so they can develop him.
Right. I mean, he might be off some people's boards with those testing numbers. Like some teams that have certain thresholds at certain positions, he might not even be on their board. Yeah. So it is what it is.
And then I got one more question, and y'all can get the other calls. I've seen a lot of mock drafts. Why are there not 32 first-round draft picks?
Because the Miami Dolphins decide to have a illegal boat meeting with Tom Brady, and they had a draft pick taken away from them.
Because they were flirting with Brady.
So many, I can't remember.
Yeah, that was the reason. Appreciate the call, Garrison. Okay. Thanks, man. Good stuff.
Appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, the Dolphins got a little frisky when they shouldn't have, and they got a first-round pick taken away from them.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of like shenanigans that go on. That's not one that they'll let pass, though.
No. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's go back to the calls and say what's up to Anthony in New Jersey. Tony, what's up?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's up?
Very good.
I got a question about technique, essentially.
So good one for you, Howard.
During the draft process, people get really excited for the athletic traits, right? And we always hear that technique can be coached into players, but can't really coach athleticism, right?
Okay.
So my question is sort of the opposite, right? So what if you got a guy who isn't that athletic, but athletic enough, but he has excellent technique in college? Is there a concern that maybe it won't translate to the NFL because he's winning in college against raw players, but then when you get up to the NFL, the technique is not enough when you're facing guys with athleticism and technique?
Well, if you think of it this way, so let's say you got great technique. Let's say you're perfect, flawless. Let's say you're a boxer, but you don't have the hand speed, right, to get your punches off, but you got everything else down flawless. The moment you fight a fighter with hand speed, he beats you up. So basically what happens in football and basketball and baseball and every sport, they say this over and over: you can't teach speed. Either you have it or you don't. The ideal is that if you're a technician and you're perfect at what you can do, we can find a place for you to play. But we can't, you can be exposed. There'll be things that you can't do. But if it's close, hand to hand, you're right there combat wise, it could work. You could be the perfect technician as a cornerback. But if you're going to play a faster receiver, if you can't stop him and jam him at the line and slow him down and take him out of his route to disrupt all the timing, they will get to you. As long as you can stop him from getting down the field, no one can bother you.
Yeah, and
same thing with a linebacker,
yeah, sure.
Same thing with a guard, same thing with a defensive end. As long as you can do that part of the job that gets you to the money, so to speak, then you can play. Your problem comes in is like if you're a great offensive tackle and you got perfect techniques, and then you got Michael Parsons on the outside. All the technique.
He just might be faster than you, right?
All the technique in the world is not going to help you. Or if you're a great interior offensive lineman and you can crush anybody, and then Dexter Lawrence or one of those other guys to get in front of you.
If he just outweighs you by 45 pounds and will physically lift you up and move your skinny butt, then it doesn't matter.
All the technique goes. So.
Right, and I'll say this too. Look at it the other way, right? You're talking about young guys. Why do older NFL players start to fall off at the end of their career? Is it because their technique got worse? Is it because they're seeing the game worse?
It's because it's two things. First off,
let me just real quick. Let me finish my point. I think it's because they're not the same athletes that they were 10 years ago. They get older, so the technique might even get better, but they're not as good of players. We saw this. Remember Antoine Bethea when he was here?
Yeah,
he was a veteran safety. Always knew where to go. Great technique, but guess what? He knew where to go. But he got there a step later than he needed to be there to make the damn play because he wasn't a good enough athlete. So that's kind of that thing happening on the back end of the career rather than the front end of the career.
Yeah, but you build like this great ability. Like you start, like the technique gives you shortcuts.
Oh, of course, 100%.
Yeah, and that's why older players play longer because the technique just gives them a lot more shortcuts. But yeah, in the beginning though, drafting great technique over someone with great speed, you're probably drafting closer to the ceiling of a player than the ability of a
great point
player. And you're trying to get guys on the big swoosh you want to ride them to the top. But unfortunately, guys with great technique sometimes that don't have the great athletic ability, they're kind of at the top.
And Anthony, I think the point when you asked the question is the way you phrased it I thought was well. I think you phrased it well. You said they're athletic enough. Well, what does exactly that mean? What level is enough? Yeah, that's kind of to me the crux of your question.
They beat all the college kids they played against.
Right.
Yeah, you beat all the college kids you played against. So you're there, but is there another level?
And by the way, that's why it's the Underwear Olympics. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
no, it matters. It matters.
It kind of does and kind of doesn't.
Right. I mean, look, that has to be shown. It has to be reflected on the tape, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you bomb at the combine, it's a huge red flag. Go ahead, Anthony. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I mean, that was kind of my feelings of it too, but I just wanted to hear it from someone who knew more. You know,
that's why Howard's here.
I kind of brought. Yeah, that's why I really wanted to call today too.
Well, thank you.
I brought it up with a specific player in mind, and it is Schmitz. And I don't want to come off like I hate this guy. Like, I think he's going to be a good pro, you know. But I see him as that technique guy, you know. Started 4 years. He's in perfect position, but he's not really that strong. He's not really that fast, but he's athletic enough, you know.
All right.
And I think there's centers in this draft, or even potential guards that could move to center that have a higher ceiling, you know. And that doesn't mean, like, it just bothers me, I guess, the first round talk with him, you know, and all the love with him. And there's a lot of guys, you know, that know way more than I do that love with him, that, you know, so.
Yeah, I will say this, Anthony, real quick, but before you hang up, I don't know if it's as important at center when you're talking about athletes, right? I don't think it's quite as important. Because, for example, you go back and you look at Garrett Bradbury, right? Starting center for the Vikings. If I remember properly, and I can double check his numbers right now, I have it in front of me. I'm pretty sure he tested off the charts. His numbers were awesome. He was this great athlete and all this stuff, and he was one of them. Yeah, 99.1 percentile as an athlete, Garrett Bradbury, right? 4.92 40-yard dash, 1.69 split. His shuttle and three-cone were excellent. Really good athlete. Well, you know what? That's all well and good. Here comes Dexter Lawrence, and he moves around like a rag doll. Yeah. Then I'm going to throw a different guy at you. I'm going to go back to the 2013 draft.
Okay.
Last pick in the first round, the 31st or 32nd pick. I don't remember which one.
Okay.
A guy was drafted that ran a 5.58 40-yard dash.
All right.
Brutal. Had a 4.76 shuttle.
What are you running
Brutal.
for? Brutal. That's terrible.
Three cones. Well, it's terrible for someone in his position in the league. It's better than me, obviously. Three cones. 7.81. Vertical. Under 30 inches. Broad jump. 8 feet. Best center in the 2010s, Travis Frederick, that went to the Dallas Cowboys.
True.
So, look, he's an exception, and I think you worry about exceptions, but I think the athletic stuff at center, not quite as important.
He also has two really good guards beside him.
Yeah, not bad.
So if you have two really good
that's true.
Pro Bowl guys beside you, you'll look a lot better as a center. You're isolated and insulated in that moment. So
Fair too.
That's not that I'm beating on Dallas guys, but
correct. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure it would scare me as much, Anthony, at that position as it would at some others, like cornerback or wide receiver, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm not scared about Schmitz as a prospect. No, I don't think he's going to be a bust or anything. It's just like the talk of picking him in the first round that like I don't see. And maybe, I come from the time of Sean O'Hara being an undrafted free agent, and being a Pro Bowler for the Giants, and
I get it.
And his thing, he was athletic, he was never the biggest guy, and that's why, even now, he looks great, slimmed down, more natural build,
Yeah, look,
But,
Anthony, look, I'm with you, and thanks for the call. I don't know if I would necessarily go center in this draft either. I don't if there was a Tyler Linderbaum there, I would consider it the guy that came out of Iowa last year.
Yeah,
but
what's happening is that it's going to be who's available.
Right, exactly.
Who's going to be the best players. It might be a player that or position you don't even need.
Right, and look, and I think if you want to just take someone that fills a need that's a safe pick, yeah, go pick the center. But that's not my main goal when I'm drafting players.
I don't think that's anybody's goal.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
100%. 201-939-4513. Doug in New York wants to talk about the Jalen Hurts contract.
Uh-oh, let's hear about it.
Roll Tide, right, Howard?
Roll Tide. I know he was a sooner at the end, but roll Tide. Hello?
Doug, what's up? Doug going once. Doug going twice. All right, Doug, give us a call back. I'll make sure I get you right back up. I was all excited to talk about Jalen Hurts.
I was too. I really was.
And by the way,
good kid.
And that contract should not have surprised people because when we talked about Daniel Jones's contract, Howard, what did we say?
I said it's going to have a 4 on it. You just got to understand why. It's that the market's going to be. You're trying to capture the market before it gets out of control and you can't afford it.
We said when Hurts and Herbert and Burrow came up, what number was it going to start with?
5.
Exactly. That's what it started with. Let's go to Len in Columbia, Maryland. We'll try to get Doug back up. We'll get a couple more calls in. Len, what's going on?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's going on, bud?
What's happening?
Man, what do we got? 9 days left before the draft.
Ooh, fast and furious, baby.
Finally,
very exciting.
Finally.
Doesn't slow down.
Finally. Yeah, definitely exciting. I'm not a trade-to-pick guy. Never have been, especially in the first round.
You're like
up
Lance.
Or down.
You're Lance.
Up or down. Up or down.
Very Lance.
We earned the 25th pick in the draft. There are going to be, here's my prediction, there are going to be starters, day one starters, opening day starters at pick 25.
I sure as hell hope so.
At 4 or 5 or 6 positions on the Giants. There's going to be a bunch of good football.
All right, well, let me ask you that. What 4 or 5 or 6 positions do you think you'll have a day one starter at a pick 25?
Center.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
Guard with Torrance.
All right, probably.
Wide receiver.
Okay, I'll buy that.
I got to slip this one in. Back in February, I told you the guy I wanted to be there at 25 was Mayer. But I'm not going to put tight end on my list. But I'm just saying, if Mayer's there, if Mayer's there, I would be very, very tempted to pick him.
Totally get it.
I don't care who we've got. I don't care who else we got.
Totally get it.
Let's move along. Defensive end. Middle linebacker. Middle line. Or let me finish, and then you can pick on the defensive end.
Sure.
I want to get to at least 6. Middle linebacker, or inside linebacker, corner, and if you want to, if the safety from Alabama is there, and you think you want to get better, and he's the best player, he'll make us better. I mean, there's going to be a guy there, John. There's going to be a guy there.
If Branch is there, Len,
I'm only at six position.
Len, no, real quick. If Branch is there, I agree. I think he would be a day one starter at safety, 100%. I'm with you on that. Corner, I think likely you'll have a day one starter. Though those top 4 guys might get wiped out, and it might get dicey.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to have somebody that's going to be better than both Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau there at 25. I got to be honest with you. Day one,
no.
I didn't say outside. I meant inside linebacker. I'm sorry.
No, we're talking about defensive end. You said defensive end first.
Yeah. You said edge player.
I missed John. I missed you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. No, you said defensive end. I think Howard took that as the guys that play on the end.
No, a guy in the dirt. hand in the dirt, and you may have caught me on this one, but I think we badly need somebody opposite Leonard Williams. If we're going to play a 3-4 defense.
Oh, okay, I got
He
you.
means D-tackle.
Okay.
D-tackle, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. You want to call? Yeah, you call him a tackle. Opposite Leonard.
Okay, I'll buy that. I think I'll buy that.
I'm not sure that guy is there at pick 1.
No.
I may have overextended.
No,
but
you know
I'm
what,
still,
Len? If you want to take a really safe player and draft like Mozzie Smith with that first-round pick, which I wouldn't do, I think he would fit nice in on the defensive line. And here's the thing on the linebackers, though. And here's my prediction, and I think I'm going to be right on this one. I do not think a traditional off-ball linebacker will go in the first round of this draft.
Wow. Okay.
Probably not. I don't see that. I didn't see like a guy that blew off the screen.
No, I mean the closest kids is the kid from Clemson, Trenton Simpson, but he's tiny.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a middle linebacker. And then Drew Sanders, maybe the Iowa guy Campbell he can get into like pick 31 or maybe to the Bills. But I think but to your point, Len, I think you're looking at 4, maybe 5. So we're talking semantics at this point. But
Okay.
yes, generally I agree with you. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just happy. I'm happy that we've got the 25th pick because I could see 4. I'll go to my numbers. 5 or 6 positions where we could pick a guy in that first round and be a better team on opening day.
Well, that's what we hope.
Much better, and it won't be a backup. It'll be a starting player. And at that defensive tackle, Howard, I'm thinking of the guy from Wisconsin. I'm not sure he's a first rounder, but I'd love to see his pick. I think he's going to be a terrific player.
Yeah, good player.
John, help me with that.
Keanu Benton.
Yeah, that's it.
Who's probably going to be Here's the problem with that, Len. I feel like he's going to go off the board around 40. So he's kind of in that spot right in between your first and second round picks. But yeah,
he's going to be.
I think, and I'm with you, Len. I think he would fit well right next to, and eventually even replace Leo in that spot if he ends up not good. I think really good player. I think he'd be right in that nice sweet spot start of the second round.
Okay, let me say one thing about the center position, and I want to be consistent with this. And John, I think you know it over the years. The one thing I am is consistent in my thinking. I'm not going to come back to you on a second phone call. We can given our roster, we can get a starting center in this draft, and I'm not suggesting that we don't draft one in the first round, but we can get a starting center opening day out of this draft through the 5th round.
Ooh.
Through the 5th round.
Ooh.
Through the 5th round.
I think
Listen,
that you're stretching.
we can't, guys, we can't start the season with what's on the roster.
Well then, Len, don't wait till the 5th round to pick one. Pick one on day 2, then, bro.
But I think we can go. I think we can go that deep. But I would not be upset if we picked one in the 1st or 2nd round.
I got you.
And I think it's playing out. It's playing out. You look at these guys and you can say, all right, this is a first Schmitz, Tippmann, the kid from Michigan, the kid from Ohio State.
The only 3 guys, Len, that I would consider day 1 starting centers in this draft are Whippler, Tippmann, and Schmitz.
Whippler, day 1?
I think he would figure out a way to start, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
He's a good player.
Yeah. If they pick one of those 3 guys, you know me, John. I think that we need an anchor. It starts in the middle, Howard.
Yep.
The guy touches the ball on every on every down. I know that sounds too simplistic, but it is the truth. You need that leadership out of that position. And so I'm feeling good. I'm happy we got the 25th pick. I want us to keep all our picks. We got to get younger, if for no other reason than it's less expensive.
Yeah. No.
Maybe when we get to the 7th round, we're drafting for the practice squad, but that's okay. Let those guys mature.
Sure.
Just get some good football players. Hang on. I want to see 10 picks. Hey, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Len.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
No,
hey, Howard,
Howard,
keep up the good work, buddy.
Appreciate you.
And I want to throw out Steve Avila, too. He's a guy that played guard this year for TCU. He's a very good player. He handled that Michigan front very well in that Michigan TCU game. Yep. And I went back and I watched his 2021 tape, and he played center. And he was, all year, he was a strong center the whole year.
Yeah.
He was really good.
He's probably going to be the guy that somebody gets then, that they're watching.
And some people are talking about him maybe sliding into the 1st round.
Yeah.
And I think he's a really, honestly, I might have him rated ahead of those 3 centers that I just mentioned. I think Avila's a really good player.
He played great last year. I got to see him a lot because they were talking a lot about TCU late in the year, and I was like watching him. I'm like, okay, that kid could be playing right now.
He's a big dude. He's like 320, 330.
He's got good feet, hands are quick. Took on some pretty big guys in the middle. They got drafted in the top 3 rounds. So yeah, he's a good player.
And I like having the bigger center too, because it's, you get you look at these guys you have in the NFC East, man. You got those big guys in Washington. Your monster Jordan Davis, who's going to be playing nose in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You want to roll out a 305-pound center against Jordan Davis
again? If you have 2 good guards.
I know, I get it.
I don't want people to think I don't like centers. If you have 2 really good guards,
totally get it.
Center could be you can help him out.
But here's why I like Avila too, right?
Yeah.
He's got position flex, right?
Yeah, he can go anywhere.
So he even played tackle for them one year.
I'm telling you can put that kid at guard, have another good guard, and put somebody at center, and then all of a sudden you got a great line. You've secured your interior.
So you want to? I probably wouldn't be. I would get it about if you drafted one of those, what I would consider. Tittman played some guard, but one of those more center only guys in the first round. Sure, whatever. I get it. You fill a need, it'll help, etc. I would be more okay with Avila just because you could put him in different spots, and I think he's a really good player.
I'm just saying that what's going to happen. Well, I'm not saying what's going to happen because I don't know. I want to make sure I say this correctly. When teams are looking at centers, they're usually drafting multi-position players, like the kid from Alabama that went last year.
Oh, Landon Dickerson.
Dickerson,
center guard,
big time center at Alabama. National championship, whole 9 yards. What's he do? He's such a good talent. They moved him to guard in the NFL, and he's starting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when the kid is, he's not a kid, he's an old guy, I guess, in football terms. But when he retires, Dickerson just slides over.
Yeah, he could. Yeah. And they also drafted last year Cam Jurgens, Arkansas? Don't remember, but Cam Jurgens, who was a center coming out, again, thinking they had to replace Kelsey now. Well, what happens? They lose their starting guard, Isaac Seumalo, to free agency. Well, guess where Cam Jurgens is going to start this year for them? Guard.
Now, which guy makes more money, guard or center in the NFL? Is it the guard that usually makes more money?
I don't believe they have separate franchise tags.
Okay.
But I will check
because
that.
If it's the guard who makes more money, you'll have a hard time making a guy move back to center.
You're not wrong.
I always think about that.
Let's see.
But they're usually interchangeable, so no one really says anything.
No, you know what? Offensive line is all the same. So they don't even separate guards from tackles.
That's not true.
I'm telling you, I'm looking at the tag numbers.
I know their tag numbers are nice, but that's not true.
Oh, I know. Yes, in reality, the markets are not the same for both guys.
So
yes.
what they've done?
I would say probably guards make more money than centers.
Okay, because
that's what I would say.
So the tag number, just so everybody knows, they've blended the number of all 5 linemen. The left tackle makes a mint more than the right tackle. The left tackle makes a mint more than a center. They put it up there to make it easier, quote unquote, to look it up, but it's not true.
I'll tell you what, that number really helps your guards and centers though, because it brings their salaries up if they get tagged.
Wow.
Helps them.
That's I guess.
It doesn't help the offensive tackles though.
Doesn't help the tackles at all.
201-939-4513. Ben in Florham Park is back. Ben, what's up?
Hey guys, how are you? Now that the Jalen Hurts 5 years, 250-something deal is signed, how does that, in retrospect, the Daniel Jones contract look to you? I mean, from my perspective, we pay Daniel Jones on implied future better performance. I think the Jalen Hurts deal was based on what he did this past season and what they think they could probably get a little better.
Sure.
What are your thoughts? Everything's honestly benchmarked to the monster Patrick Mahomes deal, but if the production is there for the quarterback, these deals tend to age well.
Yeah,
but what do you think about Daniel Jones given this?
Hey, look, Ben, I'll just say real quick, Howard, then you can take it. Howard, I assumed this was going to happen. I knew the next set of contracts, Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, were going to be in the 50s. Lamar, take your pick. They were going to be in the 50s. So I kind of built that into my analysis of the Jones contract. So my analysis hasn't changed. I still think given his age, where the other quarterbacks, got paid this year, Derek Carr, where Cousins' contract was, That's where I thought it was going to land. And again, don't look at the 4-0 number because the fourth year of that contract's not real. It's never going to get paid out based on what the cap number is, right? It's going to get renegotiated. So it's really more like a 3-year, $38 and change $1 million contract, which is exactly where I thought it was going to land. So for me, at least, it doesn't change my analysis, Howard. How about you?
When you have guys like Jalen, which they think he's going to be around probably a lot longer, and some of these other kids, Burrow and Herbert, they're going to go and break the bank, and they're ranked high. Everything's going in their I guess it's helping them out, and this is why. Daniel Jones was supposed to get a number in the 4s, right? He was supposed to get started in the 4s because the market and the salary cap is going to grow drastically over the first few years. If Daniel would have done what I said, dude, I would take a 3-year deal. You tell me what you want, and in the second year, I'd be renegotiating because Hurts just broke the bank. You go to the playoffs 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row, and all of a sudden your numbers are 5 in 3 years. But he took the 4th year, which is fine. It's still okay. The thing is that when you look at these contracts, and the way you have to look at the contracts, you have to think about how quick and how great the salary cap is growing, and where do you fit the quarterbacks in. Now all of a sudden, Daniel Jones's contract will allow a lot of other players to be signed over the next 3 years, and that's what happened.
Well, then, if that's the case, then to play devil's advocate, and I was totally fine with how the contract was structured, but if you guys are all looking at like higher and higher benchmarks, why not throw in a 5th year on the Jones contract? I'm just devil's advocate. I know that, in retrospect.
You mean in terms of like a void year where you could get the cap spread out even more?
Right.
I would say this probably happened, and I don't know because they don't tell us everything. I said sign a 3-year, right? That's what I'm saying now. I'm saying as a player, I would have wanted the highest number I could get for 3 years. I'm sure the Giants probably tried to get him for 5 years or 6 years because they knew they could hold him into the cap number. And his agent was like, yeah, not a chance.
And again, but I think what his point is, you can put that fake 5th year on that contract just so you can spread the cap proration over. I think generally the reason you don't want to do that is when you get to the end of the contract, that last year becomes even more onerous and it becomes harder to deal with when you get there. So I think that's, in my opinion, probably why. But to Howard's point, he probably, didn't really want it, to be honest with you. So,
I think that probably, I think not ownership, I think that the management would have said, hey, can we spread this out a little bit and we'll give you the number. The end of the contract really, you'll never make it the way you think it's going to be made. You're really more concerned about the guaranteed money. That's how they are selling it now to players.
Right. And the way they have set up Hurts' contract, I've seen a couple. I don't think it's been sent into the league officially yet, so I don't think we've seen what it really looks like. But they have, backloaded the hell out of this thing.
Yeah, because they want to make sure that first off he's going to play through injury if he gets injured.
Well, you want to make sure you keep the championship window open so you have flexibility the next few years.
Yeah, and you got enough. You can pay other players as they grow.
Correct. And as it's structured now, this is without any renegotiation, mind you. Something like the 4th year of the contract or 5th year of the contract has like a $70 million cap number on it or something ridiculous. So that's why they kind of structured it that way so they can get more flexibility now. And they're going to sacrifice something at the end of that deal.
$110 million up front, $120 million up front. Right. Here's your money.
And then they have a lot of option bonuses, I think, in the contract, stuff like that. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Ben?
Yeah, it does. A totally unrelated quick question.
Yes.
Have they put in the grass field yet?
At the stadium?
Yeah.
Well, it's not grass. It's a different type of turf.
Oh, different turf.
Yes.
Got it.
And yes, it is as far as I understand. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the call. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Hugo in New Jersey. He's up next. Hey, Hugo.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
What's up, bud?
Good afternoon.
Hey, I wanted to piggyback a little bit on Len's call. Now, as I think about this draft, I see sort of a cluster of players, let's call it from 25 to 45, that might be interesting to the Giants and are not that far apart in terms of talent. So
I agree with that.
So we may get into a situation, in the second round where we see players like Jack Campbell, Joe Tippmann, Steve Avila, Derek Hall, Darius Rush, Cam Smith, a whole cluster of players. I could probably name 15.
Yep.
So my question is, sitting the prospect of sitting there at 57 and not picking up a second starter, and I agree with Len about picking up a starter at 25. So my question is, what would it take to move up from 57 to the mid 40s? Is it giving up our sole 4th round pick? Does a 5th rounder do it, or
no? A 5th rounder certainly wouldn't. Let me bring up the old Jimmy Johnson trade chart here.
While John's doing it, let's think about this though. If you're trying to rebuild your team, and as well as they hit on the draft picks last year, trading picks away just diminishes your chances of you got Dexter Lawrence and Saquon both needing contracts and trying to get their bank. They should be trying to get it actually, but they're trying to get their money. As these contracts come in, if they sign one or sign both, you can't sign everybody going forward, years to come. You don't want to strap yourself. So the best way to do it is to draft good players that you can have on the field for years before they have to be renegotiated. So that's what, that's the secret sauce to every team. Draft well.
All right, so you want to move from 57, how high do you want to move?
Let's say to 45.
The 45, that would, again, this is the old Jimmy Johnson trade chart. That's 120 points. Your 3rd round pick is worth 145. So that's what it would probably cost you.
A third?
Yep.
That's probably a little too rich.
That's why I would like to trade down from 25, pick up an extra pick, and then pick somewhere in the 30s or 40s. That's what I would love to do.
I'm trying to figure out what is the best strategy between the two. If you would have told me a 4th, because in our 4th is sort of late, then I would say, hey, lock in sort of equivalent value to the 25th overall pick in the 2nd round, get a 2nd starter, and go for it. Because, a late 4th rounder, that's really a crapshoot.
No, I agree with you.
Point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is somewhat a level of certainty and value going all the way down to 45. So look, I agree. Unless if Deontay Banks drops, you run to the podium. Nolan Smith drops, you run to the podium. But if those kind of players are not there, try to trade back. I mean, the issue is there may not be a lot of buyers trying to trade up.
Bingo, you hit
it. Someone behind us might want to get ahead of Dallas at Bijan. What's
Robinson.
His name? The Robinson
is
on the board, or someone may try to get up to the bottom of the 1st round to pick up Herndon Cook or something like that.
And I'll be honest with you, I would not be shocked if Levis drops to the point where somebody moves up out of the 2nd round to come up and get him too. That would not shock me.
Those are the possibilities. But someone trading up for a positional player when there's going to be 20 positional players of kind of equivalent value, that's probably highly unlikely.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Hugo.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate the call.
I always think it's amazing, John, how these teams have players, how they view them and how they rank them. And we're speculating, but there are how many scouts on our team? Like literally?
I mean, a couple dozen.
I thought 30 people, I think, are scouting.
Yeah, I mean, if you combine everybody that contributes to scouting, yes, 100%.
Over 30 people are scouting. We are just sitting there, just looking at scouting reports and doing. They are actually they're doing it. They've watched all the tape. Mm-hmm. They've been to the stadiums. They've interviewed the coaches. They've watched them against poor competition. They watched them against good competition. Yeah. They got the goods. So it's gonna be interesting.
It will, and then teams' boards are very different. This is not an exact science. Different teams look at things differently. A guy could be 17 on one team's board and be 52 on another team's board. Like there's big differences between some of these greats.
And I tell people you have backgrounds from the Patriots and Buffalo, and especially Buffalo, the latest draft, and Kansas City on the team. Yep. Not to mention
Philadelphia, Brandon Brown.
Philadelphia, yeah. You got guys that have been a part of organizations that have had great drafts in the last few years. So they're bringing all that to the table. It could be. I believe in what they're doing.
Hey, look. Besides the games you play, those 3 days are the 3 most important days for any team all year. That's how you build your team.
And just. I think we had one kid last year that got injured or something.
Multiple,
the draft picks.
Yeah, Darian Beavers got hurt. Marcus McKeithen got hurt. Mm-hmm. Wanda Robinson eventually got hurt too.
Yeah, but they were all playing. Though.
Beavers and McKeithen
didn't make the season yet.
They did not get to the regular season.
But everybody else who was able to play played and contributed.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't think I'm forgetting anyone.
Those draft picks are. The ones they're drafting, they're contributing.
They're very valuable. Mm-hmm. All right, final call of the show. It's your buddy.
Oh, no.
Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Howard. Hey,
Charlie.
Hey, John.
What I
Hey,
need to do,
Howard.
Charlie, I need to put Lance with Howard just so they could double team you together. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Hey, Howard, look, you don't like centers. It's already been proven. Go back in the archives. So don't try to walk that back, all right? But let me
Hate centers.
let me ask you guys a question, all right?
Yes.
They've got Hooker in the building today for a visit.
There is a
They talked
report.
to
There is a report that Hendon Hooker will be visiting the Giants.
Yes, they'll be visiting John. And they've talked to this guy multiple times. They dined and wined, they had dinner with him.
Dined
they
and wined
went
him?
to his, dined and wined him. and they, so don't tell me this is due diligence. It's not. It's more than that. They like this kid. So why are they doing all this when they just signed Jones, but this kid they definitely like? And I say where there's smoke, there's fire. I think if they can get this kid in the second round, they're going to draft him.
Oh, look, Charlie, look.
What's your opinion?
If Hendon Hooker's sitting there in round 2, would I fall off my chair and be like, "Oh my God, what a terrible pick! That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen"? I would not say that, but first round, no way.
Here's the reality of it. If he's rated super high, like super duper high, and he gets to them in that pick, either somebody's going to trade up to get him out, because that's what may be happening right now, because somebody needs a quarterback and they're bringing him in several times to make sure, like, hey, look, we're interested in this kid. We think this kid, and that kid he's good. Like, before he got injured, he was really good. And, it's going to take him at least a year or so to get back. So he's a dangerous pick for somebody. And I don't know what pick Seattle has. I don't know what pick a couple other teams that really are looking for that quarterback position, that they're kind of down in the draft. They maybe want to jump back in and give up a couple picks for him. And hey, look, I know we don't like trading out of that position, but
I would do it in a second.
If you're looking at a team that's looking at Hooker, and I would court him, bring him in, be testing him. I'd take pictures in the training room, testing his leg. I'd do everything to make sure people know, like, hey, I'm really interested in him. But in this time, Charlie, it's more about perception. You got to give the best perception out there, because you don't want teams to. If you want people to offer you picks so you could have more picks, that's what you really want, especially when you're this far back in the draft. Unless there's a guy out there that's going to be so great that's going to blow your doors off, that could fall to you that you didn't know. Here's another guy. They got Hooker in the building, but what if the kid running back from Texas fell to 25? There are going to be teams. They're going to be like, are the Giants really going to? Would they pick him? They're going to try to jump ahead.
It might be us. It might be us, because Barkley might not be here. You don't know.
Hey, it might be us, but I bet you that there'll be somebody that'll trade into that position to get him.
Maybe.
So you got to look at it as it's a lot of smoke and mirrors this time of the year. I appreciate the fun of it and everything.
Of course.
And they don't tell anybody the truth, especially the two people sitting in this room.
No. Maybe you, not me.
And I make sure not to ask any questions other than, hey, can we get a tea time sometime?
Hey, and I will say this too. There's a school of thought out there that you always pick quarterbacks. You just want to keep stacking the position and, getting more people in and stuff like that. That's one. Number two, I've talked to a couple different people here that I trust, and I've read stuff from other people that I trust. I think maybe highly likely is a little strong. I think there's a good chance Bijan Robinson winds up with the Eagles.
Oh no!
Whether it's a
draft him, dude.
whether it's a trade down, whether it's a trade down from 10,
we got to draft,
and they pick him somewhere in the teens, or God forbid he gets to 30. My God, Howard, you put him with Jalen Hurts on an offensive line. I don't want any. Trust me. You think I want to say what I think is going to happen? I don't want that. It's a disaster.
As he's on TV right now, keep him out of the division. What is wrong with you? Don't say that. Don't speak that into existence. I know. Do not do that.
Hey, look, what I think the Giants are going to do is this. They're going to trade out of 25. They're going to move down in the last part of the first, or they're actually going to go in the second, but they're going to pick up a couple of more draft picks in the second round, and then they can get their cornerback, they can get their center, and if they want to take Hooker, if he's high on their board, that's where they're going to take him. So that's what I see happening, guys.
All right, Charlie, thanks for the call, pal.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
I think that the Hooker thing is a big Smoke and mirrors thing.
And I just don't want to deal with it because if that ever happened, the calls we get on this show, I just don't want to deal with it. To be quite honest with you.
If it did happen, I think it'd be it's a legitimate thing. I think he'll be out for a year, maybe a year and a half, and when he starts to come back in, that'll be on Daniel's end of Daniel's contract. So either he'll be a big trade bait for somebody's next draft, or he'll be he'll be challenging.
That's the thing. If you have a good quarterback and you draft another good quarterback, guess what? You can deal one of them for a lot of assets.
Oh, yes, you can.
Absolutely. So that's the argument to always drafting quarterbacks, right? As long as your starter can handle it. Carson Wentz couldn't, right? Remember Carson Wentz? They drafted Jalen Hurts, and all of a sudden got all mental, and he couldn't handle the thing.
My thing is,
but Daniel's not that. So
my thing is that if we want to keep Daniel healthy, we'll draft people to protect him.
No, I'm totally with that too.
That would be it.
Yeah, again, that would not be a priority for me. But would I erase it off the board as a potential possibility? I wouldn't.
Oh no, I think for all the teams that may be listening to this, I think that the Giants probably could draft. I think Hooker would be a great pick.
Trade down. For Howard Cross, I'm John Schmeelk. Thank you for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Thank you to our callers. Thank you to Eric Hansen. We'll be back tomorrow with more. I'm trying to track down somebody that covers Georgia for Lance and I tomorrow, but everyone keeps saying no. So I'm going to keep doing that the rest of the afternoon. Hopefully we'll do Georgia prospects tomorrow. Those highfalutin Bulldogs don't want to talk to us. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Big Blue Kickoff Live, guys. Have a good one.